what do you do now, and why did you choose to do this?
So when I was in business school in the late 90s, I was already a vice president of medical affairs. I was very, very excited about continuing that journey. I had the opportunity to apply to a variety of things, and I was offered a job at a consulting firm. Like a lot of top MBA programs, consulting is a preferred career.
Mhm.
I really considered it back in 1997, but it was a boss that convinced me to say, no, you're going to stick with me. We'll do great things together. And someday you'll go into consulting. And he
Mhm.
advised me, he knew my kids, he advised me to wait till my kids were grown up and didn't care if
Mhm.
I was home or not. I
Mhm.
went into consulting when my youngest was in junior in high school. And
Mhm.
frankly, she didn't care if I was home or not. And this was a long dream to go into consulting way back before I even went into consulting. The
Mhm.
last 9.5 years has been exciting. I've had the
Mhm.
opportunity to work with lots of different places on big things, little things. I've worked with 7 of the top 10 US News hospitals, I think 6 of the top 10 children's hospitals, worked with places you've never heard of before that are tiny and places that are on the New York on the stock exchange that are huge. It's been really exciting for me. This has been a passion. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be doing it, but for the time I've done it, it's been a learning experience like none other. And I believe going from being a doctor one-on-one, I've had impact. Being a physician executive at a hospital and a professor, I had impact. But going into consulting actually provided the opportunity to go to broader impact, working with lots of hospitals, not one hospital, lots of hospitals and lots of health systems and insurance companies, really to provide that bigger impact across a bigger population. So that's how I kind of see
I
my.
I think you brought up something which is not only a subchapter of human development, which is what do you do after you are 23? Like, do you stop growing after that? Or what does a doctor do after they are like 33 or 43? And in the life cycle, what happens? Are you like waiting, like you said, waiting to die kind of doctor
Yeah.
becomes a chief medical officer versus somebody who can bring passion to the table? So what have been some of your career highlights, and what insight did you gain from that?
Yeah. So let me kind of divide it into 2 ways. So the first 3 careers I had, I believe I've had 4 careers. Consulting is
Hmm.
my fourth career. The
Hmm.
first 3, ironically, were 7 years. And this is going to tell a little bit about me personally. My first career was at a health system. I got promoted very fast, but every year, year and a half, I had a new job, which was great. Still saw patients. That was about 7 years. Learned a lot. I had an itch. I felt like my learning curve had probably flattened out quite a bit at the end of that 7 years. I had an opportunity to be a professor and do a lot of research and NIH funded and other things. Boy, the first 2 years, 3 years, I learned a lot. Holy mackerel. Doing NIH grants and how to write books and other things was definitely a learning curve. But again, around, about that 7 year mark, really started kind of leveling off. And I love to learn. I had an opportunity to be president. Wow. First 3 years was terrifying and exciting at the same time. I learned more. I had a great team. I developed a great team. And then we really led a lot of big turnaround, frankly. Um, and that again was a learning curve. Around the year 6 or 7 is when it started flattening out. Now in consulting, I think the learning curve is a lot longer than that because you do so many different things, but especially the first 3 years of consulting. How do you consult? What's the process of consulting? How do you advise somebody to do something versus you do it yourself? That's a learning curve. So I may be more on the flat side of my learning curve. Maybe there's a different career path for me in the near future as career number 5. But I know consulting has been just a learning curve opportunity like none other. For across the board, working with people, working with doctors, working with nurses, working with CEOs, and positions that I frankly didn't even think I'd ever work with, like real estate. Well, real estate is important.
Oh, I see.
Parking. Who would
Hmm.
have thought parking's important? Well, just about
Hmm.
every patient thinks parking's important. Well, those are
Yes.
things that aren't necessarily doctor related directly, but boy, the patients care a lot about those things.
Well, there you
But
go. Dr. Ransom, you have a 7-year itch and you scratch it. But now, what gives you the courage to scratch it? Because many a times, what a doctor would find is that, oh, I'm very comfortable. Is this going to be too risky? Will I end up, being destitute trying to do this? What will happen to my family or my household? What gives you the courage to say, okay, now I want to do this or I need to do this?
I try to follow my passion.
Mhm.
And the second part, which is really important, I think, for every doctor, is networking. You can network in a lot of different ways. Each of my 4 careers has had a different process to get there. My
Mhm.
first one was right out of residency. I knew some folks. I got the job at the place. I kind of knew some folks, which was very exciting. They were looking to grow. When I went back to be a professor, frankly, one of the people, the chair of the department that I was, in OBGYN, wrote a chapter of one of my books. I had edited a
Okay.
very large textbook in
Ah,
OBGYN. We
okay.
didn't know each other really well, but we knew each other. And he knew what I was doing, and he was very motivated. They came to me about the opportunity to kind of lead an institute and really develop.
Mhm.
Third, again, through networking, and this was a one away, a recruiter called me about being president of, frankly, an institution I'd never even heard of before.
Mhm.
Well, he got my name from somebody else that I
Mhm.
knew a little bit, but not that well. They were looking for a doctor who was board certified, who was NIH funded, who actually had led a turnaround of a healthcare organization or
Mhm.
supported the. Well, I was one of the only, and I think he told me I was the only one that actually had all three of those kind of components of being a board certified doctor and an NIH funded doctor and a turnaround doctor. It's very exciting. And then again, through networking, the consulting kind of came through. So yes, there was a little bit of anxiety. Can I do it? We all have insecurities and anxieties about things. But fortunately, my wife is also a physician. She was very patient with me in these various transitions and very supportive. And it's all worked out spectacularly well.
This is very, very good. And even when you said that earlier on, you didn't know you were going to become an obstetrician and gynecologist, and there was a mentor. And here again, the value of networking, finding mentors who will give the scaffolding to your passion. So you could say, okay, fine, I'll leap over to this now. Is that a fair way to say what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot of different ways to network. And the network is bi-directional. People want to
Hmm.
know you, you want to know them for a lot of different
Hmm.
reasons. I
Hmm.
currently meet with about 15 executives,
Hmm.
mostly doctors, but some are non-doctors,
Hmm.
um, every month to 3 months. And these
Hmm.
are people that I consider really bi-directional kind of mentor mentees. I may
Hmm.
be the mentee at one point and then the mentor the next moment. But we build friendships. But I learn because I have the gift of learning from these folks. And I hope to be able to share some of the perspectives that I have. And having these numbers where many are senior, like medical school deans and CEOs or chief medical officers of big health systems. But I also have 2 people that are young. One was a brand new chief of staff, 33 years old, way at a different phase of his career. Another person is actually in graduate school right now. And why do I work with those folks? Well, 2 reasons. One is I feel like I can help them. I really like.
Hmm.
I never
Hmm.
do this for people I don't like.
Hmm.
And secondly, a whole different generation. I can learn a lot. And in fact, I learn more from the younger
Hmm.
folks than the more
Hmm.
senior folks because I've been with those guys. I've actually been in their shoes a lot. Not that there's a lot of nuances on how to do things. Don't get me wrong. But the person in graduate school, he's a digital native. I'm very digitally savvy for a doctor, but I am not a digital native. He
Hmm.
teaches me every time. I am certain
Hmm.
I learn a lot more from him than he learns from me, no question. So it's a privilege, and he's going to do great things in his career. But it's a privilege to learn from these folks and to hopefully share some views that might help them as well.
No, no, I am a big fan of networking. And I like to think that I have never done a job that was ever advertised because my mentors in this bi-directional relationship, them helping me and me helping them,
Yeah,
we they would create a job for me. They would
yeah,
say, "Oh, we have this coming up, and do you want to do this?" And that has been so much more exciting than trying to sitting and negotiate with people about
Well,
how many hours will I be working kind of thing.
well, that's a great point. I have a pretty good network with recruiters, and I have looked at a lot of different jobs over time. Of my 4 careers, my 3 careers were 100% through networking. My fourth career, my third career, the president role, was kind of networking because it got to the recruiter, and the recruiter ultimately placed me through the process that they had set up. But I couldn't tell you how many jobs I've looked at, but it's in the many dozen over my career. Some I've interviewed for, and some I was offered, but I said no because it wasn't the right thing. Some I got to be a finalist, and I was disappointed at the end. Always it works out right. I remember, gosh, in 2001 or so, I was a finalist for a kind of a largish health system chief medical officer position way out in the East Coast. I got to be a finalist. There was 2 of us. I didn't know who the other guy was. Ultimately, they offered the job to him. They thought I was great, good option. But as the recruiter, this was a recruiter led, he said, the other guy was just perfect. He was more senior than you at that time. I was, in my 30s. This guy was in the mid 50s. He had 20 more years of experience than me. And I got to know the guy through other avenues. He didn't even know I was the other candidate. He was the right guy after I met him a few months ago or a few months later. He was absolutely the right guy. So, the recruiters are important. Definitely stay with recruiters. But the likelihood of a recruiter placing you is way less than your network to be able to help connect you, especially in the earlier jobs.
There you go. Networking, also a form of human engagement, and where humans help each other. And it improves quality of life of a doctor. It improves, you can earn more money doing that by doing that. And of course, you save them money because then they don't have to go and search for someone like you. They don't have to spend time looking for someone like you. Okay, well, that's a wrap of this episode of this special series, Do This, Not That, for physician engagement, retention, and well-being. Hit subscribe so you can get the latest episodes as soon as they come out. Hey, write to me so I can prepare more programs to serve you. And look in the description below to download your special report and other goodies to start your journey. And thank you, Dr. Ransom.
Thank you very much.